Welcome, Robbie. Thanks for being here today.
Hello, Sean.
Hi, mate. For all the people that are just joining us, Robin was very fundamental in the early days of computer game illustration. He did a lot of work for Automata, and he's got a very unique art style. Um, so, I'll just lead in with the first questions then. So, tell us about your early life, Robin, and how you first got into all this art malarkey.
It was by default. I'm a particularly unathletic and unintelligent person, and the only thing I could really do was draw pictures. That's right, from a very, very early age. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I like doing. And I will admit that I've still got a few of those pictures. I look back on them now, and I think, gosh, they're rubbish, even for a child. But people seem to think, it was I had something. I don't know. I like to draw cartoons, and even when I was quite young, I mean, I suppose I'm talking between the ages of 8 and now, I like to make up stories. I like to make up my own cartoon strips and invent my own characters, and that's great fun. That was the world I wanted.
And what sort of styles did you experiment with? What influenced you when you were growing up?
The only things that I don't think I really had any direct influences except I mean, well, I had the usual sort of comics that kids had. I didn't have things like the Dandy or the Beano. I had a lot of television tie-in comics. There was one called TV 21, which people of a certain age might remember. I will say something, that had some superb artwork in there. It was really, really good. And I thought, I'll never get as good as this. So yeah, I like to sort of action adventure stuff. I also like the comedy stuff. I like to mix those things up together, really. But I mean, I've still got a few of the things that I drew, and I drew them in pencil. They were mostly in pencil and coloured them with a crayon. And later on, I was drawing with biro, ballpoint pen, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a very underused and underestimated medium. You can do things with a ballpoint pen that you cannot do with any other instrument.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of time for this. I used to do tons of stuff like that, and my audiences were my schoolmates, and they would read my comics. And my big brother, was 7 years older than me. Still is. He's still around. And if I could draw something and he would laugh at it, then that was great. That was a huge boost for me. So he liked my funny stuff more than my so-called sort of action-y, serious-y stuff. He thought it was a bit dreary, I think. But I think it's just funny because I was a child, a bit of a dim-witted, lame sort of kid, and this stuff was coming out of it. It was appearing out of nowhere, and that's what I love about drawing, and I still love it now. Is you can take a pen and a bit of paper, two completely separate elements, and you can have something that didn't exist before. And that's magic.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
And I say that to anybody as a child or an adult, whatever, and I say this to kids now. Whenever I've been in a situation where I've been drawing things for children, some sort of thing or other, I would say, do you like drawing? I say, yeah. Okay, well, so we'll keep drawing. Because when the iPhone breaks down, or when the internet goes out, or whatever, if you've got a pencil and a bit of paper, you should never be bored.
Yeah.
So
when you got to the age of basically a working age, did you try in quotes proper jobs, or did you go straight into that? You did?
No, proper jobs. Jobs. Yeah, I did a load of jobs I was really terrible at. I was, when I was 15, I was taking bones out of sides of bacon in the back of a supermarket.
Right.
Until they caught me. No, I was there for a few months, and I was then I was selling car accessories in a car accessory shop, and then I did get a sort of an opening that, because somebody had seen some stuff I was doing. I don't know how they came to see it, but they said, "Oh, we know somebody who wants a cheap." I didn't say cheap, but that's what they wanted. They wanted a cheap artist. This is 1972. Right. And I went to work for this guy in Portsmouth. At this time, I was living in Eastleigh, which is near Southampton, and so I was commuting every day to the sort of back of a building somewhere, and these people did T-shirts for universities,
Mm.
and they just want somebody to say, see this crest, copy this onto a. But that was terrific training. I mean, I never went to art college, so they just said do it,
Mm.
and I had to figure out how to scale things up and how to do kinds of typography and so on. I mean, it's probably pretty basic, but it did focus me.
Yeah.
I did a few bits and pieces, but I wasn't doing anything independent, and none of my own sort of imaginative outpourings were being turned into anything.
Okay. How did your parents feel about that? Were they encouraging about your art, or were they a bit?
I think it was a case of well, my parents were from a much earlier era. I mean, they had me when I don't know how it happened, but they had me when they're in their mid-40s. I still think gooseberry bushes and stalks are involved, but so they were from a much earlier era. I mean, they were born in 1910. So that wasn't just like a little while ago. That was a different time completely. So they were, my dad didn't really mind. My mum, I think she wanted me to be like other boys and get a proper job and all this sort of stuff and get married, all those things. But I don't know. It's a long time to think back. I'm thinking back 50 something years now, and I think they were a bit like, not making much money doing that, because I wasn't making much money doing it. So when it started getting a bit, I was there for 18 months, and I met some people, I met some friends, and friends I still have to this day. So for that, it was brilliant. And who said, they introduced me to music and books I didn't even know about. So I found out about Mervyn Peake and Aldous Huxley and Frank Zappa, and all the stuff that I taught. I didn't know this existed, and those things are a huge influence on me as well. So anyway, I became a postman for a while. You can imagine what a terrible postman I was. I was rubbish, but there was nothing of me. I'm not a big fella now, but I mean, back in '74, I was a rag and a bone and a hank of hair. And in those days, you didn't sort of get a little patch. You had a gigantic big mail sack to carry around, and only got like anyway. But that was good for me. It was good. I did it for a year, and then then I went off just to be a nutcase. Basically, I just sort of dropped out of everything and started painting stuff. But I think that when I did that, I just went to live in a flat and be a bohemian and everything else. But again, I got sort of discovered by somebody who wanted some cheap artwork, and I started doing cheap artwork. And I was basically drawing pictures of large-breasted ladies.
Right.
And I find that I just say that throughout my career, I've done work involving computers, which I know nothing about, beer and pubs, which I don't really do a lot of anything with, and large-breasted ladies, and I couldn't seem to get anywhere with the reality in that aspect either. But so I live in a fantasy land. But to me, it's just like, I'll give you this £5 note if you draw this woman with big boobs. I thought, okay, fine. I didn't consider whether it was politically correct or not. I mean, that term wasn't invented in those days, but I didn't consider that be offensive or not. I mean, I knew women, and they just said, "Oh, look, he's drawing girls with big tits. Good for him." It wasn't a big deal. He just did it. It was the '70s, man. I got a £5 note for that. It's great. Ridiculous amount of work that I put into things, and to me, it's just a job. It's just doing my job. Just doing my. It sounds awful, I know, but I was actually quite innocent.
Yeah.
That there's no. If Steve come along and said, "Can you draw pictures of flowers and bunny rabbits?" I'd have said, "Yeah, sure, okay." I'd have done that.
So how did you get in touch with Mel Croucher?
Oh, that came some years later, 1980. Now the fellow I've been working with on and off, who became a friend. I can't remember his name now, but so stuff that I did for him went to our local printing press, and they'd crank out these pictures and cartoons and whatever magazine he was doing. And Mel, who was also lived in the same town pretty much, and he used the same printing press, because I think it was just the one, or the one main one. He needed an artist, and he went into there and he said, "Oh, who did these who does pornography? It wasn't pornography,
Mm.
he said, oh, that's Robin. He lives so and so. I got his phone number, so I got a phone call. In the flat I was living in at that time, which had a a payphone out in the hall, and I wasn't getting very much work at that time, and I remember I had a streaming cold, or flu or something like that, and I was staggered out to the hall, and what they were doing, they were producing a magazine for the local radio station, which at that time probably isn't anymore, was Radio Victory, because we had the 8 Minutes Victory and everything else. He said, oh, I tried to call you yesterday, but you were in bed. I said, well, yes, that's because I was half conscious with bloody influenza. And he said, well, we've seen some of your smart in the local printing press, and we wonder if you can do other things. I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do other things. I'm fed up with doing that garbage. So I went around with a folio full of my work around to their office, which is just a half-mile walk from where I lived. And he was there, and his longtime friend and colleague, Mark Bardell, were there. And I opened this thing up, and all kinds of things came out. It was just, bits of comic things, ideas I'd had, and really very strange fantasy drawings I'd done years before, and a certain amount of smut. And he said, well, yeah. He said, yeah, okay, well, when do you want to start? So again, I'm thinking, this is 1980. This is April 1980, I think, must have been. I said, well, yeah, sure. And I think he paid me a certain amount a week, a retainer, and it was great. It was nice working among people. And I found we had the same taste in music, because I was humming a bit of Frank Zappa. He said, oh, you like Frank Zappa? I said, yeah. So and they brought in a record player that you just bought in. What is it now? What was that? What was the really sort of budget electrical goods they used to have?
Tandy.
No, not that one. That's one, but began with A. No, began with A. Began with an A. Anyway, but they did a lot. They all come to me. They did a lot of this sort of stuff. Anyway, came with Zoom Plonk. So we all brought our LPs in and listened to great music and produced all kinds of stuff. And so we did this magazine, which I provided some cartoon pages for, and some artwork for, some all kinds of bits and pieces, and help generally. I mean, Mel is a very skilled. I think he's been trained as an architect. A very, very clever bloke. I mean, I just would turn up and go, I just felt like the village idiot. But it didn't matter, because I found that these, both Mel and Mark, were very, very brainy men, but they didn't treat me like an idiot. It was really nice. It was a very nice atmosphere, and a very, very lots of fun. I seem to recall, but I'm thinking back 40 odd years now.
Yeah.
But I've got good memories of that. That was nice. Yeah. By the way, Sean, I'm just looking on my bit of the monitor. I can only see about half of my face there. Is that what it looks like to you?
No, I can see you from the chest up.
Oh, okay.
So it's all good.
That's not all good. It'd be better for the black bar across it. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was generally different bits of work came in. So they did these things called Pathfinder maps, and so they'd go around and get different people to buy a bit of advertising space on A3 sheet, and we draw a map in the middle, and we do the adverts around the edge. And so I did some of the artwork for that, if you recall, just bits and pieces here and there. Yeah, all very enterprising stuff. So yeah, it was all good.
So they originally, did that magazine, and then they switched to software, didn't they? Computer games.
Yeah, but after I left for a while. I left for 3 years to go and be a lunatic, and so I lived on the Isle of Wight. I was a washer-upper on the Isle of Wight. Those are great years in Bembridge. It was really nice. Again, I was like the old man there. I was 26. And everybody else's average age about 18, 16, 17, 18. But it was great fun. I thought I was a local loony, but I could draw pictures and I could do other things, and that was nice. Happy sunny days. And, yeah. But then Mel, I was still in contact with, and I was still going down to see him occasionally, and did the occasional bit of artwork now and again. This mysterious thing was happening called, computer games, and all I knew about computer games was things that went doot, 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 doot. That's all I knew. So big deal, but and he started talking about this thing called the Pie Man, and I thought, well, what? Okay. And then I was gradually doing little bits of artwork while I was still working as a plate washer in my little chalet. You know, I'd do bits of artwork and mail it across to them, or we sometimes go across on the boat and say, "Yeah." And the first thing they were doing was this thing for Popular Computing Weekly, or Computer Weekly, and it was a 3-panel strip. It was a big ad for their product, whatever game they were doing, which originally was a Pie Man or Pie Mania. Which I don't know how much you know about that, how much you've already covered on that, but Mel's probably covered. Yeah, so you're not about that, blah blah. So yeah, so I mean, I know Mel did the original color artwork for the first version of Pie Mania because he couldn't afford me. Well, I'd have done it for nothing, you know, but and I think I did all the stuff subsequently, one of those ones. And yeah, so I did a couple of these 3-panel strips which went under their big 4 advert, and then it went to a 6-panel strip, when usually involved the Pie Man and his various relatives. There's Lady Claire, yes, Lady Claire Sinclive, that's it. Ho ho ho. And for some reason, Groucho Marx was also involved, and he became one of the characters because one of the games that he produced was My Name is Uncle Groucho, You Win a Fat Cigar, which is another competition game like Pie Mania, and I did the cover for that one. So yeah, so Groucho was popping up in the strip. I don't know how that was dealt with from a you know, a copyright point of view. We said it was Groucho. It was a cartoon with a moustache, you know, who knows. So then the strip went from like a 2-bank strip to like the whole page with a little tiny form at the bottom with the ad details on, and that became the famous back page of the PCW. And I did that every week for God knows how long. So what happened was Mel would give me a script, which I'd go, and, which I mean, he loved. He liked that because he wanted me to do that. I hope he did anyway, because he just wanted me to run riot, I think. As long as we got something in about the product. No, I didn't always do that. I mean, a lot of the time I did adhere to it, but there was a demon in me that just tends to sort of go, let's go over here now. Whoa, oh dear. Or I can just squeeze that bit of the brief in there as well. So yeah, I mean, as a kid, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd probably be more professional now.
So how was it working in there? Because I know it was a good work atmosphere, but what was your daily routine in there? Was you know, was it quite relaxed? Did you go to the pub at lunchtimes? That sort of
thing? Yes. Unfortunately, I think there were. I remember a lot of pub lunches, and just a minute. So my dog Alfie has seen something out the window downstairs. I was hoping he wouldn't do this, but he's doing it. So you'll stop in a minute. Yeah, it was a bit beery, I think. And there's usually a dog there as well. There was Mel's Irish setter called Rory, and he was a lovely dog, a big floppy, soppy dog. Yeah, there's not much more that I can really fill in. Really, it's I'm sorry this isn't really very helpful, probably, but I'm trying to think back and sort of cutting at anything that maybe was horrible. I can't think anything was. No, Ed, can you ask me anything specific? I mean, apart from generally, you know, what I can say is it was a nice atmosphere. It was funny. It was enjoyable. I mean, occasionally things would go wrong, you know, with something we were doing, I don't know, or Mel would get grumpy a bit, or I would disappear for a day and go loony. You know, things that would have, you know, everyday office routines, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you have to change anything about the way that you drew or painted to sort of meet the restrictions of printing at the time?
I was sort of really fairly au fait with the restrictions of printing because I'd done quite a lot of stuff before. And in fact, the very first job that I had in that field, which was with a t-shirt firm, they were printing stuff that I was drawing onto textiles, you know, onto cotton. So, and I remember the guy that I was working for then would say, "Oh no, be careful with those lines, Robin," because his expression was, "They will plug up." You know, they would merge together. So I was very careful about that. So I think most of the things that I drew, what you saw on the page, came out on the printed page.
Yeah.
I think there's a few exceptions, but we used to have lots of fun with. I'd got hold of some sheets of Letratone,
Hmm.
and that, as you probably know, is just sheets of dots of varying intensity, and we had to cut it out with a pair of scissors and stick it on. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
much what we did.
Yeah.
And then we had another one you could actually rub some of them down. They weren't very good; the dots would fall off. But yeah, it was all good fun. It was interesting. I never really, the novelty never really wore off of seeing something that I'd drawn in print.
Yeah.
And I will say that there was a certain point in the mid 80s when I would go into WH Smith's and I'd look at the magazines on the rack and I'd say, I'm in that one. I'm in that one. I'm also in that one. And it was quite a nice sort of feeling, you know.
Automata were unusual in the fact that I think it was their policy to never have a game where you could kill someone. It was always just like sort of fun games, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the Mel was really quite against the shoot 'em up thing, you know, because most of the games that were coming out were about sex and violence, and I
Mm.
think that Mel didn't want to have games that involve violence.
Yeah.
So he wanted adventure games or games that made people think, you know, and work out puzzles, and that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. When you got commissioned to do the covers, because obviously there were computer game covers. So did you actually play the games, or did you just get a brief?
Got a brief.
Yes.
Yeah, I think on a few occasions when computer games were at that stage of development, that's to say, where they weren't, you know, almost photorealistic and coming at you, when it was just things going, you know, I might have played a few minutes of one or two of them,
Yeah.
and I just thought, let me just get back to my cartoons, because it wasn't just that they, you know, they were dull or anything. They were a bit hard for us. I couldn't get my head around them. I thought, well, what do I press now then? Yeah. Somebody gave me a game to play. There was a game that, mid 80s, and I can't remember exactly the name of the game. It was a sort of a St. Trinian's kind of thing. What was it now? I know I did a tie-in comic strip for about 3 months,
Mm.
or 3 episodes of it. What was it now? It was something with us. Anyway, they sat me down with this game to play it to get an idea of it. Well, I kept falling down a hole, and I couldn't. And I said, "Well, look, how do I make this character go along without falling down a hole? I'll just do that and that. Oh, okay." Sploosh down, sploosh. I thought, no, not for me. This isn't interesting enough. I'm no good at it, and it's not doing enough interesting things for me. So no, I never got the hang of it. I mean, I think I would sometimes play, obviously, things like arcade games, like, you know, yes, Space Invaders. That was very stressful, because as soon as I started getting faster and faster, I felt really threatened and frightened. So, yeah.
Yeah, because you did that cartoon, didn't you? Was it The Secret of Centrinians or something like that? Or
What
Saint
was
Brides?
it?
Saint Brides,
I
wasn't it?
believe it was. It might have been that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was best part of 40 years. It's 86, I think. Yeah. Um, yes. And I just ran with a sort of a vague notion of a sort of an impression of the game. And I didn't really even do anything that was directly related to the game. I just made up a bunch of new characters and added a caricature of myself in there, and just drew and drew. And I think maybe two of those were done. I can't remember now. Two of the actual tie-in things. One that was great fun was something called Space Doubt,
All right.
which I did. I think Ian Ellery. Ian Ellery. Do you know Ian? Ian Ellery.
CRL.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, CRL. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. He was a big noise at that time. Again, this is 1985, I think. And I'd seen a bit of the game, and I thought, okay, yeah. So there's three little guys. We've got to get those food boxes over to there, and they've got to deal with those things. So I was quite pleased with the way that one came out. It was quite good fun. And I remember, so I'm going off the Automata thing now, but I don't know if this is relevant. But I remember I took the last episode, and it is I think it was 6 episodes. The last one was a two-pager. And I took it into him in London. I just went to London. I said, here we are, and he read it, and he fell off his chair laughing. And I thought, hey, yes, that's what I like to do. That was crazy fun. I mean, there are things in that which probably you couldn't do now for various reasons. Um, but yeah, that was great. And again, did I do the cover for that? I did the cover for, I think, I know I did a poster, a big kind of a poster that appeared in the center of the magazine, which if I'd thought about it, I'll have that handy and show you, but I don't know what it is. So anyway, but it's a picture.
Well, we can insert it later if you've still got it. We'll just put that in later.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've got it digitally somewhere, but the poster I've got is all tatty and ripped. I think I gave the original artwork to somebody, I forget. Yeah.
One thing that always struck me about your artwork was because I mentioned that it was really original, really different looking to everything else that was out at the time. Being sort of early 80s, everything else anyway looked sort of soft airbrush, really bright psychedelic colors, and yours was very, I couldn't put my finger on the style at the time. I know I've talked later on, and I sort of said it looked a little bit like Viz, which I know
I hardly even seen a copy of it ever.
But I think the reason is because the Viz's style is very much sort of early comic book style as well. It's the sort of Beano and Dandy and
yes, yeah, I get that. I mean, if there's any influences, if there is any influence, I think it might be the American cartoonist Robert Crumb.
Oh right, yeah.
Because I was in 1972 when I was working for the T-shirt firm. I was shown some pictures by him. Look at this picture, you old man. What do you think about that? But no, I saw pictures of Mr. Natural and Fritz the Cat and so on. And what struck me about his stuff was how incredibly old-fashioned it looked. And then I found that Robert Crumb was influenced by Seaguy, the man who invented Popeye, and the old Fleischer Popeye cartoons, and that really that Crumb lived in the 30s. He's a very talented musician and obsessed with music, but doesn't like anything that was produced after 1945 or something like that. As I totally related to that. So yeah, and I loved all the fine, not the fine work, but the way he would have, it was fine art. But but all the characters had a certain kind of solidity about them. He did lots of things with cross hatching and so on. And stuff I've seen of his recently make me realize what a blooming amazing artist he is. Just astonishing, just off the scale. One of the great American artists of the 20th and now the 21st century. I'll never be as good as him in 100 years. But yes, I think that a bit of what he was doing kind of rubbed off on me. And bits of all kinds of other things. What motivates me to draw, which is another question you haven't actually asked, but I'm going to answer it anyway, is I like to see I draw things that I want to see. If something doesn't exist, I'll make it exist. Yeah. If a certain comic book doesn't exist, let's create it. So I brought some of that into commissions, so that if somebody said, can you do this, then I'll say, okay, sure. And I've got different styles. I mean, I'll tailor my style to whatever it is that the client requires.
Yeah.
So generally, most people who use my work know what I do, and therefore they know what they're going to get. So new clients, we talk about the old days. I'm retired now, Where's me bread and milk? New clients are always tricky because they'd look at my stuff and they go, well, I don't know. And then a while later, they'd need somebody and they'd get me in, and then they'd realize that, oh yeah, we do like that. Oh yeah, we do like that. We like that as well. It's a case of getting used to something and getting to like something. And sometimes things are outside of your frame of reference or things that that you like, and you think, well, I don't know if I don't know. And then you think, oh no, yes. And then say, well, can you do this with it? I say, yeah, sure. You're the client. So, what do you want? You're the person paying the money. If people say, oh, do what you want, I say, no, you tell me what you want. And I'll do my best to draw that picture that's in your head.
Yeah.
Mixed with a bit of what's in my head. And there we go. Well, I don't know if you found that when you were first commissioning me, but you've probably seen some of my stuff before, but we can just calibrate stuff, and say, well, if that monster is too big or too close, or you want a girl in it or you don't want a girl in it, or somebody should be waving a sword. Let's just paint it in. We can do these things now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a well. The reason that just to give my own books a little bit of a plug here,
Yeah, please, fantastic.
so
I should have had one here.
the reason that I sort of tracked you down originally was because I wanted an artist that was from that era, because they're sort of guidebooks about games and that sort of thing. So there was a definite link, and I wanted that same style that people who were familiar with as well, just to get that nostalgia thing going. And also, you're a good artist, obviously, as well. Yeah, you've done it with my covers. So, when you start a new commission, and I know this anyway, but I'll just ask you to.
Yeah.
How much time do you spend on doing roughs and preliminary?
Really, as little as possible. Yeah. I can't say preliminary either. You see, that's why I don't do it, because I got to say it. As little as possible, because I find I can burn off a lot of enthusiasm doing rough sketches, and sometimes you want to go ta-da, and so do you want this here and want that there? Here's an outline, would go for it. And there was a case some years ago when I did a not a very finished at all kind of, but by its nature finished rough sketch, scribbly doodle sketch. I sent it off to the client, and then I didn't hear from them. And then I said, "So did you get that? Did you get that? Oh yeah, sure, it's great. We'll send you the money." I said, "Well, wait a minute. What do you mean you sent it?" "Oh yeah, it's gone in." "What do you mean it's gone in? That's a sketch. That wasn't a finished thing. You mad?" So maybe that's what some people do. That's what some people want. Maybe that accounts for the amount of garbage you see that passes off as commercial art or any kind of art. Who knows? That's me being cynical. No, I mean, I sometimes I can overfinish things, and people say, "Oh, yeah, I kind of liked it when it's all rough edges." So yeah, we can sort of do that as well. But I like to get it so that at least I've said, "Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind seeing that in print."
Do you think your style's changed since the early days? I mean, everybody evolves, don't they? But what do you think has changed about yours?
It changes all the time. It will change from one day to the next, and also it changes from one client to the next. When I was working for 3 different people, for instance, somebody wanted something cartoony, somebody wanted something more realistic looking, somebody, so I'd have to sort of reach into whatever experience I had or whatever style I had and apply that to whatever job I was doing. But yeah, I think I'm more careful now, certainly with things like I'll get onto the comic book stuff later on, that I like to get it as balanced and as finished as I possibly can, because otherwise once it's printed, it's gone out there and you think, "Oh no," and everyone's seeing that and think, "Oh no, that's as good as it's oh no," and it's done, it's in print, it's stuck. And not so much now, because you can actually put another one out there to another edition halfway through and just change something. But that's kind of a messy way to work, really, I think. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I know there are young people out there who are doing fantastic work. I've seen some of it. I mean, a lot of the comic book work I've seen, the graphic novel stuff and the covers, it's just astonishing. It blows me away completely. But it's not stuff that I really like much. Put it that way. That seems I'm having best of both worlds. You haven't got to like something to know that it's good. So most of the stuff that I like, probably, certainly as far as commercial art or comic book work, it's like Bob Crumb. I like stuff from up to about 1968 and beyond that. I think it gets a bit nasty after that. I don't want to be depressed. I want to be entertained. But I think it's absolutely fine. There's always dark. Everything's dark. The Dark Knight, and the dark this and the dark that. And but that's fine. The young people like the dark. It's fine. I want something a bit more, a bit less like that. But that's me being old fashioned. That's not to put any dampers on what people are doing now.
When did you leave Automata? Can you remember the circumstances?
No, it wasn't a case of any. I mean, the first time around, it was a case of I needed to make a break. And so I just applied for this holiday camp job, and I packed everything into a bag and went across the water. You can see Ryde from Portsmouth, of course. It's only over there, but yeah, it was. I just needed a change of air. Everybody was fine about it. And when I came back, I was doing everything from home by that time.
Oh,
I
I
was doing
see.
it, so I wasn't going back into an office. They had a different office by that time. So I remember the office was about 2 miles away from where I was living at the time. So I remember every time I finished a back page, I would, and I did them actual size. I used to like to work, at least 4 times the size, but it was much easier. It's like it's going to be printed A4, draw A4 size. So I did that. I think I did. I'm sure I did. I did. Yeah. And then I'd put it on my arm and I would jog the 2 miles every week and go ta-da. And then we go to the pub.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that's nice. It was all good fun. And then Mel said, "Wait a minute, wait, that's not the script I gave you." I said, "Well, yeah, I know, but that was just a game. That was just what we did. I think if he'd actually put his foot down and said, "Look, from now on, can you please adhere to the scripts I give you?" Then I'd have said, "Yes, okay," but he didn't. So that was just what we did.
Well, going on to your later work, 'cause you've made a lot of books, haven't you? And you're carrying on your various cartoon strips like Vanna's Planet and
Yeah.
Effects and that sort of thing. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I'll just say quickly that another branch of work that I went into
Oh, sorry.
was no, sorry. I'll keep this very short because it's not actually very relevant to printed work. But I made my biggest income over the past sort of 15 years since I'm up here, going to weddings and drawing cartoons of people at weddings and birthday parties, on office parties, and that was terrific because you've got to work on the spot and do a 5-minute cartoon of somebody doing something crazy, and that was terrific fun because I met millions of people, just certainly tens of thousands of people, and drew tens of thousands of people. And because I was thinking I could be interesting for about 10 minutes, so I can be talking to someone for 10 minutes and they go, da-da. I say, "Oh, you're very interesting." I say, "Yeah, I am for 10 minutes. You won't see me again." We're after that. Well, for a long time, what I was doing with Mel was a strip in the last page of Computer Shopper. A Computer Shopper was a very well-respected consumer magazine, which ran from 1986, no, 87, 87 or 88, I think, a long time ago anyway, until only a few years ago, I think. And we were in every single copy. We had, Mel wrote the script, which I did adhere to because I didn't understand the ideas behind it, because Mel has got an encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff. So he could have done an actual straight informational 3-panel strip, on computers, which he kind of did, but we did absurd stuff. He did absurd stuff in there. So initially he was actually drawing out the script in biro and with the illustrations and everything, the whole thing, and he gave it to me and I turned it into a cartoon. That we did that every month. We did 400 of those.
Oh, wow.
That was over 30 something years. Well, what happened was we did 300 and blah, 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 whatever it was, and then the magazine stopped existing. So we actually had brought out this book, ta-da, this book, which is the Collected Great Moments in Computing, which is published by Andrews UK, who I'm not sure about this, but I believe the editor, the CEO, was a follower of the back page back in the 80s, when he was very, very young, and now he's he's a grown-up fellow and a businessman, and now runs a publishing company. So we published this book, which has every single installment of Great Moments in Computing, which started in black and white way back, and then went to color. But they're all in here. Actually, they're not all in this one because this goes up to 360. And Paul Andrews commissioned us to do the final 40, which we did, so that we could put this edition
Could you
which,
just the first one back and just bring it more into frame? Is that
yeah,
okay?
sure. I'm sorry, I'm bothered by that. Can you see it there?
Yes. So
Okay.
could you just open it up as well, just so we can
Yeah,
see?
sure. So again, this contains all the strips as they were printed back in
Yes.
those old days, and
Yeah.
then they turned to color and ta-da. So immense amount of work in here.
Mm.
Um, and there's actually bits of information as well, but it astonishes me that wow, we did all this, goodness me. So we've got our own little jokes in there and like kind of in jokes and all kinds of stuff. So there's that collection. There's this very odd collection, which is short pants. Another one we did, I think it might have been before Great Moments. It was 80, no, 86 or 87. We did a strip called Mercy Dash.
Mm.
This is Mercy Dash. I'd invented the name prior to that, and I didn't know what to do with it. And Mel did some negotiations with the people who ran. It was Newsfield Publications. Oh, it was 1988 to 89, 87 to 89. It ran. And what was the magazine? Was it the Games Machine?
Mm.
And it ran in there for 18 months. Again, Mel wrote the scripts, and I mostly adhered to his script. I think a couple of times I went a bit off point, but we weren't selling anything. But what I'll say is that this was Mercy Dash was a dipsomaniac, chain smoking PR woman, but this was before Ab Fab.
Right. Right.
And when that turned up, I thought, familiar. I'm not saying that what I did was anything as good as what Jennifer Saunders was doing, but it was the ideas were in the air. The idea was in the air. In every job that she got, she'd muck it up, and there's all kinds of scatological nonsense going on. But this book contains there's a nice drawing of that I did. This book contains all the stuff that wasn't Great Moments and wasn't Pymania, all the stuff I worked on with Mel over the decades for various magazines, just crazy bonkers stuff. But I think somewhere here, this is a copy of a Computer Shopper, completely irrelevant now. This is about 14 years old. So our strip appeared on the back page like that. You can just better see that, I think.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And Mel wrote an article called Zygote, and so that was all in there. So yeah, and I did various other bits of illustration for them throughout the magazine. That was good fun, and that was very nice. What else do we have? We did have. Did I bring it up here? It was around here somewhere. That's gone completely. There's another book which is called the devil. It was here a while ago. Well, it's gone. Well, the other book is called Pi. No, this is Mel's title, and it's hard to say without getting it offensive or wrong. Pi-bola disorder, and that was a collection of all the Pie-Man strips that appeared on the back page of Computer Shopper, and they were taken from scans or photographs of the actual back page themselves. I don't know what happened to the original artwork. That went astray somewhere, but yeah, that's all there in all its dated glory. I mean, some of those strips are more than 40 years old now.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is crazy because I'm only 40 now. How do these things work? I don't know. Yeah. So, do you want to? Can I cover anything else here?
Yeah. So, Wander's Planet. I mean, that's been an ongoing project for a long time, hasn't it?
Well, actually, a long time, because it was called something else back in the 80s. So the 90s, I should say, when I devised it in the 80s. So I devised it in a panic because I'd come up with an idea, because I'd heard through my spies had told me that the News of the World, remember the News of the World, was looking for cartoon strips. I thought, yeah, why not? What can go? What's the worst that can happen? So I devised this idea called Young Doctors in Space.
Right.
And it was about, the theme was like, we've heard of young doctors in love and young doctors. So I thought young doctors in space. And it was just like a bunch of, not really very bright intergalactic medics. And I knocked up 6 of these things, sent them to the News of the World. Now, one of them I put in this spoof thing, the sort of a spoof galactic, Amazon character called Lavinia Laser Blast, for want of anything better, in which, the Doctor meets her and something stupid happens and he ends up, something stupid happens. I don't know what else. Anyway, there's only a 3-panel strip. I sent these to the News of the World. I'm asleep on the floor one day, thinking, what are we going to do? And the phone rings. And it's the features editor of the News of the World. What? What? And he said, oh, thanks for these things. He said, I like this Lavinia Laser Blast character. Could we do a strip on her? I'm sure we could get her in. So yeah, okay. And I ran upstairs to my little studio. I just went, I just wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I drew and I wrote and I wrote and I drew. And I just banged this stuff out. This is 1987. And I just banged this garbage out. I just made it up as I went along. I thought anything. I put it into an envelope. I shot it off to him. Got another phone call. So this is brilliant. Love it. I said, oh yeah. He said, well, I've got to discuss it with the editor. But I said, look, I'm going to send you a retainer. And he sent me £150 just not to give it to anybody else. This is 1987.
Wow.
I thought, yes, he's paying this for doing what? I'm going to be rich. And I did a few more of them, and he sent me some more money, and it was great. And I went up to see them, and I took my girlfriend with me at that time. We went up, and we went across to the wine press in Fleet Street, and we were drinking wine and saying how great it was going to be and ideas. Fantastic. The next thing that happens is there's been a change of editorship, and they're not going to be doing any new strips. They're going to go import stuff from America. So, okay. But he said, can I send the strip to a friend of mine who's an agent? I said, yeah, go for it. But what happens was, years later, 2 or 3 years later, this guy places the strip in the Glasgow Evening Times. Is that still running over there?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
There we go. Well, that's where it was. There used to have a funnies page, a full-color funnies page, and Lavinia Laser Blast, which when he wanted to keep the name, I didn't like the name, but he wanted to keep it. Was placed between Bristow and some imported American thing, and and I did that for a couple of years. I sent it in as a daily strip, a daily 3-panel strip. Absolutely bonkers, just loony. I was making stuff up as I went along. There's all kinds of smut in it. It was the sort of things that I saw in the newspaper when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I think, you couldn't do it. I keep hearing this thing. You couldn't do it now. You couldn't do it now, not in a daily paper, probably. There was no sex in it, but the girls are quite sexy. That's just the way I like drawing women. That's one of those things. And I like the women that I draw to have personalities, and for them to be actual sort of like to react to things. They're not just victims. They're not just objects. They're in a situation. So anyway, that ran for a while. And so what happened was, when that stopped, because they just got fed up with that, I think, nothing much happened for a long time. But when it was picked up again, it was picked up by Paul Andrews we just done the Great Moments books and this one and everything else. And he rang me up one day, said, have you got any other ideas, anything else you want to do? I said, I've got this thing. What I've been doing was I'd started revising the strip, and I didn't like the name Lavinia. I wanted to call her Venna, and I like the idea of, is it going to be Venna's World, Venna's Planet? Because it's an ironical title, and if you ever read the story, you'll find out why it's ironical. I just liked it because the whole thing about John Carter, when that film came out, they called it John Carter. So they said, we can't call it Princess of Mars, the story on which it's based, because boys don't like princesses and girls don't like planets. I thought, a bunch of people being paid to sit around a table at a conference and come up with that nonsense. Okay, so I want to have mine named after the main character, Vanna, and it's going to be the word planet is going to be in it. What do you think about that, committees? So I was doing that as a daily, not a daily, but a 3-panel strip, which I would load onto a site that I do load my artwork onto, called DeviantArt, and people are following it. So I had quite a body of this by this time. And when Paul said, "Do you got anything?" I said, "Well, would you be interested in doing this?" And we decided that that might be a good idea. So I said, "I'm still working on it. It's only the first part." So we did three books, and the 3 books were like, get the first one. Can't find the first one. Well, like this. They're square. I don't know why I decided to do them square, but we did. And they're all in black. Nice color cover, but the insides are in black and white. And because I did them like a newspaper strip collection, which I love newspaper strip collections. I'm crazy about newspaper strip collections. I've got collections of Modesty Blaze and Jeff Hawke and that sort of stuff. I think they're fantastic. But I think that some people find that kind of hard to see and hard to read.
Yeah.
Now this collection, these 3 volumes are out there. You can get them on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Waterstones, wherever you want to go to. And they're not terribly expensive, and they're good fun, I think, and they're nice little collector's pieces. But I then thought, well, maybe we need to do something a bit more ambitious and a bit bigger. So UK seemed to be okay with that. So I started working on what I was going to do is just add a bit of color to them, make the captions a bit bigger. It ended up being a year's work just to get to, it's crazy. This is what we ended up with. I've redesigned the logo, which hard luck if people don't like new things. Redesigned the logo. This is in full blazing color all the way through, with nice big, easy to read captions and dynamic framing. So that we actually have big splash, some nice big splash, find a big splash panel somewhere. But yeah, big splash panels here and there, and lots of chasing about. There's a lot of dialogue in it. It take you a while to read through all that lot, but I like to think it's engaging and it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable story, I think, and it better be. So I spent like 30 odd years working on that, because the basic premise I had for the original story was based on a painting I did even earlier than that. I don't know if I can ever find that one anywhere. I don't know if that still exists. And all it was a picture of a woman on a rock, sitting on top of a rock. Behind her is a crashed spaceship, and below her is a spacesuit, and there's a sea of mud, and she's have to climb out of a spacesuit in order to get herself free of the mud. And that's actually what's happened. How that story begins, pretty much. Right. So all these ideas grow out of each other, and I found all the illogicalities and the things that don't quite work in my original new redraft. But I've really worked on it this time, and I think it's cinematic, and I think it bounces along. And I shouldn't be saying this about my own work, but I think it works. How are we doing for time here, Sean? Do you need to stop and do anything else? I mean, I'm just wittering on.
No, this is all good. It's interesting. Is it?
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, I mean, you're obviously keeping really, really, really busy. You seem to be non-stop working. Do you think you'll ever retire?
I've retired already. Oh yeah, I don't have to do it. I've got to do anything now. I could sit in front of the TV and watch, what do people watch? Antiques Roadshow and that sort of stuff all day. But I'm just on the go the whole time. I mean, I'm a shut-in. I sit in this attic most of the time. I'm an attic. There's a window behind us. Oh, some of the other thing I was working on, which another commission from AUK, about 10 or 11 years ago. Somebody else who knows about my work, a fellow called Barnaby Eaton-Jones. You may know him. I mean, he's a very clever guy. He does all kinds of theatrical stuff, and he knows all kinds of people. And he came up with this idea of a 1960s set secret agent spoof with this with the main character called whose name is Perfect for a number of reasons, which he came up with. And I did some character studies for him, some sketches and some ideas. I did a logo for him and everything else. And I was going to work with him. He's going to write scripts. I was going to draw pictures. At that time, I had to tell him, I said, look, I'm just swamped. I wouldn't be able to devote enough time to this to do it justice. And he said, oh, well, sorry about that, but I mean, thanks for being honest. So I said, yeah, well, I didn't want to get halfway through and just drop it. So 10 years later, the opportunity comes up again, and he's got several other artists working for him. He's got a guy, Gary Andrews, very, very good. Simon Brett. I mean, these are all names, you know. Chris Geary, Jessica Martin, also a comedian. So we've got all these amazing people doing this stuff. And he said, "Have you still got the logo and the original sketches?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll whiz them over to you. Go for it." And I wasn't going to be involved in it beyond that. And then it turned out that either somebody dropped out, or what they did didn't really work. And he said, "Would you still be up for it?" I said, "Yeah, go on then. It seems to be I'm supposed to do that." So I worked on a script with him. He had a basic idea, and then again, I said, "Do you want me to just do this?" He said, "Yeah, just run with it." I said, "Yeah, I can run with it." So yeah, and this is the big collection. That's all the perfect stuff we've done is in this big one big book. But you can buy the individual ones. There's which is volume 1 there. It's a nice cover, mostly by Gary Andrews, who did this rendition of Perfect. And yeah, no, they're nice. They're nice 60s set pieces. I mean, I suppose I might have been a bit more in touch with the era because I was around in the era. Some of the other writers and contributors weren't. I was a kid. I mean, I was, you know, when these books are set, 1967, I set my stories. I was 12 years old. I had my nose pressed against the glass of the 60s, thinking, "Oh, I want to be in there. I want to be in there. I want to be in there." And I couldn't, 'cause I was too young. So it was great to return to it via these stories. And it was just marvelous fun. And the one thing I would just say is that when I was drawing my comic books with my own characters back in 1967, I did a secret agent one, and I made up this character called Harry Oddsocks, and he had glasses, he had mad hair, and his colleague was this beautiful woman. She didn't look very beautiful the way I drew her, but I wasn't good enough at drawing. But that's the idea. And her name was Daphne Regent, and I said to Barnaby when I was writing the last volume, I said, "Do you mind if I put this character in the story?" He said, "No, whatever, go for it. It sounds great." I said, "I made it up in the actual time the story is set."
Right.
And I thought that was just so brilliant. It went point, and here she is now, much better drawn now than I ever could draw her before. But there's a little close up of, you see, there's Daphne there.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. And there's this weird sort of mix-up because Perfect has decided to steal somebody's identity in order to go on a mission that she's not supposed to go on. It just so happens that the identity she steals is out of Oddsocks, the other character that I made up, who makes a brief appearance in here. So she dresses up saying she's him, and Daphne doesn't twig that it's a girl, and that's the comedy bit because she was straight away like that. But the funny thing is, the way I've drawn Perfect here in the white suit, she looks the way I used to look years ago because I was a bit sort of fey looking and a bit sort of like, you know, I wasn't sort of very dun, 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 dun. See, now I'm an old man, it doesn't matter because I'm just a mad old man. It doesn't matter, but I you know, I wasn't a good-looking young fellow. But there you go. It doesn't matter. I have fun doing this stuff. The other thing I've been working on, this is a separate thing, still involves artwork. I live in Kendal. I live near Bowness on Windermere.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
And they have this thing that size. You met about Loch Ness, and they've got Nessie, and then somebody cited something in Windermere in the Windermere water, and that became known as Bownessy. Now somebody bought the IP for that, which she still owns to this day, and she got in contact with me because somebody said there's a guy who does cartoons and everything else, and so I ended up doing a lot of cartoons related to that. What she was trying to get it off the ground as a promotional thing for the there's Ben Essie, you can see him there.
Oh yeah, cool.
It's pretty adorable, isn't he? Yeah. You know, it's one of those things that if people got twigged how much money there is in having something like this, as you're flipping mascot for the local area. They haven't got it yet, but they'll get it. And when they get it, then they'll all want to get on board. But that was great fun doing that. We had an actual ball, going around and seeing various people and doing various events. There's even a big Benessi suit, but there's all kinds of things that I've been working on. It's been great fun. And but that's going to be big. Watch out for that. That's going to happen.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Robin. It's been a really interesting chat.
Is it? Oh, I hope it has. I feel I've just waffled on about me. Although you did ask me questions about me, so fair enough. But I just want one last plug. This book is now out. You can now buy this if you go to Amazon. It will turn up on your doorstep, and it's available internationally. And I'm working on volume 2 as we speak. And there's even more work going on volume 2. I'm pretty crazy, but I want to get these things right now. And you should have the black and white versions as well as the color ones. There's things that took out of the black and white versions that you'll miss if you just buy the color one. Yeah, this is a new thing. If you're fed up with doom and gloom and manga and all the stuff that people are into now, and you want something kind of old-fashioned and devil may care with lots of beautiful girls in it and robots and monsters, then that's the book for you folks. Mostly probably more suitable for older people.
Perfect.
Marriage.
Great. Well, thanks again, Robin. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's nice to speak to you.
You too, mate.